Hi, hello, namaskar. This is your host Sarang, and welcome to One Story at a Time. So today on our podcast we have Mr. Karan Naidu, who just recently got placed at Nutanix for a hefty package of 40 lakhs per annum. So first of all, Karan, welcome to the episode, and congratulations on getting placed at Nutanix.
Thank you, Sarang, so much. It's been a good experience. How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing good. How about you? How is your have you started? Is your internship going on with Nutanix or is it somewhere else?
No. So Nutanix is actually starting at first. I took a 2 month break from my previous internship. I actually quit. So I thought before going full time for a job, might as well relax a little bit.
Of course.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's start with the podcast. So the first question,
Okay.
and by the way, congratulations on becoming an engineer officially. Congratulations to both of us.
I swear we are finally done with engineering, and I'm so happy.
Yeah, same.
It's been a good ride, good experience. 4 years.
I know. We are both from BMS College. This is just a heads up for our viewers. So I think joining BMS was one of the best decisions of my life. How about you?
Totally agree with that because actually, fun fact, my father is from BMS also. Yeah. So
Right.
I think he's the 1983 batch
Acha.
or something. So it's been quite a while. Mechanical engineer.
Acha.
So I think what BMS does is that it teaches you a way of life. Somehow, it's not just about the teachers. It's about our alumni,
Correct.
our networking, the kind of people who come together,
Exactly.
different ethnicities, people from different states. My friends, most of them are from Jammu, Nepal. So that exposure is what we get. So different cultures coming together. So yeah, so
Absolutely.
it's been a good experience.
I totally agree with you because I have told this in the previous episodes. I believe in network is your net worth. So, one of the factors which drive you to do more and be a better person every day. So yeah, let's start with the questions. Why engineering? Was it because of placements, and why CS? What made you pursue engineering?
Okay. So it's now, one thing is I'm not going to just give you some lies or any kind of fake answer. Typical answer which you get everywhere is why engineering is because it's the best paying job. That's the honest fact, right? It's in India, it's either engineering or doctor. So you have two choices to look respectable. So that's the main thing. But the correct question for me would be why CS, I think. So engineering was, it's either, doctor or engineering. So that is narrowed down. But why CS is because that's a passion of mine. From 7th grade, I looked at, so people have different passions.
Correct.
And mine was pretty fixed from a young age.
Acha.
I liked coding and to be very fun, a fun fact was 9th, 10th, I hated coding.
Acha.
It was pretty hard because I felt the teachers were not that great. So I feel that teachers matter in your interests also. So if a teacher is really good, you might like the subject.
Correct.
Yeah, so in 10th, there was a biology teacher. So he used to teach pretty nicely. So I thought, maybe I can be a doctor. So it happens like that.
Right. So that was why you chose CS.
Yeah.
I usually tell this to my juniors. Only pursue engineering if you have a clear-cut interest in engineering or any of the domains.
Oh, very true.
Because, I know a lot of people who literally got stuck. They had literally no interest in engineering, and you know how it is, right?
I totally agree with you. So many people, once they reach a stage where they get so many backlogs, they reach a point where, what do I do in life? What is the next step? So, yeah, but even those people end up being successful after a long time, maybe. But so it teaches you, BMS teaches you a lot of things.
Agreed. Okay, I mean, tell me more about your engineering life, because the Karan I knew was the Karan who I met in parties or who went.
Yeah,
That was the Karan I knew. So, I mean, is
yeah,
this like a transformation, or were you like this from before? Do you have two faces? Tell us more
yeah,
engineering
So,
journey.
so engineering journey is pretty funny. Coming back, I think let me come back a little
Yeah.
bit. So my 11th, 12th, I was actually a pretty hefty
Acha.
kid. I was like so hefty. Uh, I was not that great at studies, 110%, because I'm not a bullshit. My 10th was good marks, 12th was good. If you look at anything else, first to 9th, 11th were not great marks at all. Okay. Luckily, I got into BMS. I did well in comedy. And after that, it started. So my first and second semester did not go so well. So that is the current, where I just got into BMS. I wanted to have a fun time. So, but the fun fact was I actually did bunk classes, few of my classes. So my entire induction program I attended. So lot of people, yeah, that time they told attendance was compulsory. So I actually ended up attending the entire induction program, and that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
That was for people who don't know, our induction program was actually 3 weeks long.
Correct.
So I ended up attending completely. From there, I realized, yeah, it's okay to have around 85 to 75% above, right? So you can have that attendance. So sometimes when I was not in the mood or I was late to class, I used to bunk classes. But the difference was I used to go sit in the library canteen and open my laptop and code.
Oh.
So yeah, yeah, you might be shocked. So even though I bunked classes, my entire first year, I was very focused on projects. I felt I had a personal feeling because in the first year, as you know, it's not our core subjects. It is a mix of other subjects. So I wanted to stay one step ahead. So I ended up doing quite a few projects in my first year. I ended up doing around 4 or 5 projects in my first year. And I felt that is what has helped me even to this date.
I mean, I can very much agree with that point. Probably one edge that you have got over others is that you started very early. You started very early than others. I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing because, and I guess that's also one of the things I mentioned to my juniors. Whatever you do, you have fun, go to parties, do maja, everything, but you should have some focus in your life at least. And
That's correct.
what you did was very smart, and probably that's why you are placed at Nutanix.
No, actually, 1 year COVID was actually the lag in my career. I feel, to be very honest, 1.5 years was the break in my career where, as you know, that was the time where Fortnite was released in PS4. And I was one of those kids who got addicted to a little bit. So almost good 8 months of my life went down.
Okay.
So the seriousness hit after, like online classes, even you know, right? It was more of, it was not very, nobody attended it very diligently. But after that, again, the seriousness came back once you went to college and the placement started and you're like, I have to get my life back on track. And
correct.
So,
I mean, actually, I was about to come to that. I mean, it was more like 1.5 years of COVID, right? Yeah. So did you? I mean, did you start learning anything in your in that lockdown or something like that? You worked on projects, or was it just Fortnite?
It was more of a fortnight and chilling because I did not know when the pandemic was going to end, right? So I did not know whether it will end in 2 years, 3 years, because at that point in time it seemed like it was never going to end. So I was like, might as well enjoy that time. So and that time I was actually not looking very ahead of future. I just did coding because I liked to. I was not looking at a long-term perspective where I wanted a job, because even as you know, people watch Shark Tank a lot, right? So everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and you're like, why should I have a job? So I wanted to do some freelancing. So I tried to explore my options.
Oh. Mhm.
So, yeah. So one good thing about me is when it comes to coding, I've pretty much touched my hand in
Sure.
all the areas. So I started with being a front-end designer, HTML, CSS, React. So front-end, and then after that I started back-end, that Node.js. And that back-end is Node.js, if people don't know, is used for typical applications like Netflix and Spotify. So basically high volume applications. And then after that, I touched into little bit of ML, TypeScript. I've done app development. So that is on Flutter. And my final year project, I thought I want to touch machine learning. I did not want to do that because I wanted to stick on the web development side of things. But it so happened that BMS wanted me to do either blockchain or ML. So I got it into ML, machine learning, and it did end up as a very good project. I enjoyed doing it. Taught me a lot of exposure. So that was my entire journey on
because
coding.
I was not at all the coder guy, because in my first second year I tried coding. I learned C#. I was probably into augmented reality. I have even developed a few applications based on C#. Wow. But I was never the coding guy, and that's when I realized, and I always wanted to become an entrepreneur. That was like one checklist, and fortunately or unfortunately, I might have got all the skills to be an entrepreneur. And first was coding, but then I realized no, I'm not a coder, because everybody was coding in my class. It was a peer pressure. Then I was like, oh my god, what do I do? And that's when ideas started to come in my mind. More than ideas, it was the problems that I wanted to solve. And that's how my entrepreneurial journey started also. But did you plan? How did you plan? Or did you even plan at all? Or was it just impromptu? Tell us more about that. A lot of people have plans. Okay, so in first year, I want to finish this. In second year, I want to do this. How was it for you?
Oh yeah, so that's a good question. So my first year I was pretty much, so like you said, I wanted to start my own company. Actually. I was like, I wasn't sure on what I wanted to start, but my initial plan in my first year was to make money before everybody else. That was my entrepreneurial dream. Okay, so initially I started off by saying I wanted to be a teacher because I knew a lot of YouTube people were earning a lot of money, right? And I learned coding for the sake of teaching more of. So I had to learn faster. And one more thing, there's a website called as Udemy, right? If you know it. So for people who don't know, Udemy is a good website, one of the best, I might say. It is where I did most of my projects. It is my second college. So basically, 90% of my time was spent there. I've done almost 20 to 30 courses. I have 6 different accounts so that I get offers each time. So that was my second college. The point being that I did do that. It was a good exposure for me. And later on, I wanted to be a teacher in Udemy, because what I realized is people make money in dollars, because once you do a course there, you just have to keep maintaining it. And once you maintain it, you can actually keep, it becomes a revenue generator automatically, because once people keep subscribing to it, so basically not everybody has to start a company, not everybody has to there's different types of entrepreneurship also, right? Because YouTube people, so people generally mistake saying that, I have to have a company of my own to be an entrepreneur. But anything that has a recurring revenue, which does not involve your time and effort every single day, that itself is, I would consider that as being an entrepreneur.
Right. And one thing that I would really like to appreciate is that you stressing on doing projects. Because I have known a lot of people who attend these courses and, without doing any projects or anything, they just think that they're good at what they've learned. I mean, how important is doing projects? Tell us more about that.
Okay, that is a very good question. So what I've actually seen my juniors, my competitors do is focus a lot on competitive coding. Like 90% they focus, and I agree completely that it is very important. Right, that is what gets you placements, and that is what it's like a foundation, right? But people miss out on the fact that even when they are learning coding, they learn all the syntaxes and all that, but people don't look at the applicability part of it. So when you do not apply something you have learned, you tend to forget it. So there's a lot of terms, for example, in Java, there's something called as encapsulation, inheritance. But the problem is, it is very theoretical. They don't show any live application. So if you do some kind of game development, because Java is used for a lot of game development. And Java, there's like so many things in Java itself which I don't know. And even though I've done my 10th, 12th in Java, it's ICC syllabus. So I would actually feel, I personally feel that little bit of the education system has to be changed. In India especially, why? Because most of the computers are done, exams are written, right? It's not meant to be written in the hand. It's meant to be practical. It's a computer for in the end, right? You do not know, and it's about developing new applications. Why? Because see, I'll give you an example. If you're going through game development, there's something called as inheritance, right? So that inheritance, how do you apply it? And in Java also, there is something called as coloring. You can do Java web tokens are there. You can develop Java websites, color coding, and so a lot of things in Java which I know it's there, but I've not actually used it. So I feel that is lacking, because even though I've come through the education system, even in engineering, there's a Java subject. But we have not actually done anything where I can say that I know Java well. I know Java, but I do not know Java again. Why? Because no projects have been done in Java, right?
So,
yeah, so I would actually continue, because this is a very important question. Projects is what at the end of the day will give you the confidence to crack not just an interview, but to see where you could look at a long-term future in the company. You don't have to be scared, oh my God, in the job I might not end up knowing anything. So for example, now if they give me a task, right, like tomorrow I join Nutanix and they give me a task, I will have the confidence to complete it from start to finish, because I have done almost 10, 12 projects, not to boast, but the kind of errors you get while doing the project is what helps you learn, right? If you don't get that errors and you're just writing everything on paper,
that makes sense.
You'll not grow,
So
right?
that's basically what is, I mean, you said it very rightly. That's basically what happens in all our exams. You just know that they're going to ask you this code, this particular application. You just
these questions, there's like set of 20 questions.
That's
and
completely useless. Continue. Please continue.
And the errors, the debugging of the errors, like solving those errors, that's what makes you a software developer, right? Without getting like thousands and thousands of errors where you crack your head every single day to solve it. That is what at end of the day matters, right? And that is what makes you a proper software engineer. And that is what will not just help you get placed, but will actually, you won't get kicked out of the company easily. Right? So, and that confidence is what matters. It will help you get that confidence. So that is what I feel is the usefulness of projects.
And can you tell our viewers how to do this? I mean, because a lot of people have a fair idea of what they want to do. A lot of people in CS know, okay, I have to be a full stack developer, for example. So how do they do it? How do they approach this? Is there a set way to approach these kind of problems, or tell us more about that?
Okay, so that's again a good question. So I think the first issue when people start computer science is, right, they do not know what they want to do in computer science. That is the first hurdle which they have to overcome. and you have to be fixed on what you're doing. So the reason I was hesitant to do machine learning, like I told you, my final year project I did not want to do, is because you have to look at it as building on what you've learned before. So if I've learned web development before, I would look into going into blockchain, or I would go into cloud computing. So that is an incremental learning for me. If I get into machine learning, it becomes an entire different ball game, right? And I should not get into machine learning. I should not get into augmented reality. I should not get into front-end design. If I'm doing back-end, I should stick with back-end. There's actually a problem for this. What do you say? Jack of all trades, but master of none, right? So, yeah. So if you do that, it's not going to help you. So generally, people want to be a full-stack developer. And what they do is they learn React. React itself is so complex that it requires time and energy, because React gets updated very frequently. There's a lot of version releases. So React is a good paying job, but you have to put your time and effort towards that. So I realized that later in my journey, and now I'm a proper backend developer. Even though I know frontend, I don't touch it. So stick to what you know and try to be a master at it. So that is what I would say. That is the first hurdle of choosing what you want to do, right? So that should be done. Now the second hurdle, which I feel, is once you choose what you want to do, don't let the company choose your career. That is what most engineers are doing right now. Whatever computer science, if you even they just want a job. They want a high paying job. That is not the way of looking at a job, which I always, before getting placed also, I wanted to choose my company. I wanted to choose my package. I wanted to choose my job profile. So I knew beforehand I wanted to be a cloud developer. So I wanted to be a cloud developer ever since fifth semester or fourth semester. So I did not want to let the company choose my job. So anytime it did not matter if it was a high paying company. I did not apply for it. If it was not related to cloud, I left. I just directly rejected. So that is how you actually choose your career. You don't let the company choose your career for you, right? So that is the main second mistake which I feel people currently are doing. So and then the third one is focusing too much on competitive coding. Competitive coding is good. It helps you solve errors. It makes you a better coder. But on top of competitive coding, you should look at applicability of competitive coding. Where can you apply it, right? If you don't do that, after end of the day, because it is like solving mathematical problems. If I ask you to solve some 12th standard question of trigonometry, you will not remember. Why you won't remember? You are not using it on a daily basis, right? Multiplication, division, you remember because every single day you're using it. It's applicability. So if that is not there, that is the third mistake where people are doing, is focusing too much on competitive coding and not applying it. So what I feel the approach on the third thing to go is do competitive coding, side by side do projects. So that interrelation of when I do projects, I will understand the code better. So that is what made I feel better, because I used to do both of it side by side. So debugging, syntaxes, understanding code, everything
so
becomes
probably
a lot
something like
better.
this. The first thing that people have to do is explore everything and choose one domain which they feel that.
Yeah, and I feel they should choose it before third semester,
and then be a master of in that domain. And then, integrate both applicability and competitive coding to make them a better coder. And, ultimately choose the company. Choose the company which they think they are going to be fit into with their skills. It's not the vice versa. Correct.
Yeah, that's correct. So whatever you have already developed, your skills are developed, choose the company accordingly. Don't run behind money. So that is the wrong approach. If money and your applicability, your skills match, then it's all good. Because Nutanix, thank God I got this. Okay, but it's all God's grace. So it's 99% effort, 1% God's grace, luck, whatever you call it. And after that, Luckily, this time I got the highest package in college, so I was very grateful, very happy about that. And so it and one more thing, Sarang, it is
Sorry.
actually a 42 lakh.
Sorry. It's sorry. So viewers, it is
that was-
42 LP.
okay.
It's not.
Okay, so and it's not like how everything seems. So people will see the CTC and they do not know how it gets cut down. So once it gets cut down, it ends up being a lot low because half of it goes in stock. Okay, so you can directly divide 50%
Right.
of it, and that's what happens. So. End of the day, 42 is not 42. Yeah,
Right.
the CTC
and
is
the
what
tax
happens.
burden on top of that.
Okay. Tax, oh my god, employees tax. When I see it only, it's like, I've not even started working and I can already feel the pinch of the tax. It's like very crazy. Yeah. So, and I
Right.
think that's all. I think I
Great,
covered
great.
that.
Okay,
question.
let's shift our
Right.
topic. It's too much of coding for. Yeah. Tell us more about
Too much
your
coding,
interest,
perfect.
because
Okay.
as I already told you, the Karan I knew was completely different. Okay, so tell us about that Karan, the Karan
Yeah.
who was into road trip, Karan who was into clubbing, and the Karan who was into
Okay.
gymming. So tell us more about that. How do you manage all of them?
Yeah. Okay, so I personally see, this is my personal opinion, and everybody has their own way of following their life. Okay, so it might not be applicable to you. I would not suggest you to actually follow what I do, but I like to take life one day at a time. I still it's not the current knew. That
Right.
same current is still there today. Fun fact, I'm going to Goa tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a 6 a.m. flight. So the point is, I'm a very chill going guy. Okay, so as much as I work hard, I like to enjoy, because end of the day you do not know whether you're going to be alive or not tomorrow, bro. So and it's not just about clubbing or anything. I like trekking. I like I like scuba diving a lot. So yeah, so it's for those who haven't done scuba diving, it's a must do. It is so beautiful. The amount of colors and the fishes you can see. Trust me, you would have never seen something more beautiful than that. It feels, you feel free. Okay, it's like you feel freedom, and it's about making more friends. I'm little bit of an extrovert and an introvert. If I stay at home, I love staying at home. If I socialize, I love socializing. So it makes me happy socializing with people, making new friends, and little bit chilling, little bit watching a lot of movies on Netflix Prime. I watched everything. So how I function is I enjoy as much as I can. I get so tired by enjoying, I come and study. So that's why I told you guys not to follow what I do. It's a little bit funny, but again, so I go to the other extreme now. During exam times, I like study full night. So it's like full night, meaning for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I hit the books.
Right.
So I'm not a complete nerd at all. So yeah, so there's no point even. I would suggest anybody to have a CGPA of 7.5 above. So 8 above. So that helps you to have the basic qualification to get into a company, right? And after that, your English speaking skills matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's the way you approach people, talk to people. You cannot be socially anxious, because I know so many people who have high CGPAs, they can't talk to people. Like I will go put my hand on top of them and say, dude, talk to me. So how are you going to climb the corporate ladder or any ladder, in fact, if you don't network, if you don't talk to people? Because see, the way you're interacting is like a friendly interaction, and if that comfort level is not there, you cannot be an entrepreneur, like how you said. So all of those skills matter if you want to be a manager. Otherwise, end of the day, you'll still be at the bottom. So it is not just about marks. It is about all your other skills, which you learn in college itself and inside college. So,
because this is something that I learned from my mentors. most of them, even if you don't have any ideas, even, if your product has not got that dum, it's about how you present yourself. It's about how you present the product. So in order to present, the medium of presentation is always through words and actions, right? So that communication has to be there. So, I mean, I can totally agree with what you said. And there's also a misconception in the Indian society that only those nerdy, studious guys get all these big, hefty packages. And I'm sure you are one example that can prove all those myths wrong, right? All right. So let's come back into this placement funda, because a lot of our viewers are interested in placement package, all those things. I know a lot of people. 2-3 months prior to their placements, they started learning data structures, algorithms. It was just like DS algo. So how important is learning DS algo, and is it very overrated? What do you think about this?
No, I actually don't feel it's overrated. It is very important. Because the first coding round of placements, you have to crack using only DS algorithms. It is 90% of data structuring algorithms. And I would actually disagree for people who say you can prepare for 3 months, 4 months. It is not actually possible. It is possible for people who already have a coding experience. Like suppose for me, I did it in 3 months. Okay, why I was able to do it in 3 months is because I've already learned coding. I've done it in 10th, 9th, 8th. So it's like you already know. So half of the data structures and algorithms I've already finished in my college days. So it's like basics at least, not maybe the extreme part. So something as similar as binary search. That is a very simple program. You might have done it in 10th or something, but that is also a data structure and algorithm, right? So so my point is, for those kind of people, 3 months, 4 months is enough once you know a particular language, or you can even shift. So I actually was knowing C++ well, so I thought I can do my competitive program C++. But I shifted to Python. Why I did Python is because the same thing which you can do in C, you can do it in Python much faster, and the compiler actually does not recognize proper Python code. Why, I'll tell you, is because sometimes it's like cheating through it. Few questions in Python, once you have experience of 3-4 months, you'll start seeing that few questions can be solved in 2-3 lines of code. And how does that happen is because if you know the libraries properly, right? That is a key to cracking it. And no interviewer will check whether you have used the correct method or you have used the shortcut. So, end of the day, it's reaching the goal. It's about not working hard, it's working smart. So, so you don't have to keep working hard and look at how to solve more questions. And see, the end of the day, if you ask me, like any person asks me, any student asks me, dude, how do I crack data structures and algorithms for interviews? That is very important. How do you crack it is, there's 200, 300 questions, and it is impossible to solve all of it. So first part of it, you have to target which set of companies you're looking at. So each set of companies will have different questions. So Amazon will have different questions, Microsoft will have different questions, Google will have different questions. And second tier is, you should look at, again, some companies are security-based companies. So security-based companies will ask questions on Python. And more, they prefer Python. So, and few cloud-based companies are okay with any JavaScript, anything, whatever you can do. So what I personally feel in the second step is that when you're doing competitive coding, there's actually this website, Geek for Geeks, I think you know it, right? In that, there's something called as SDE sheet. So SDE cheat sheet is there, and those trust me, though, that cheat sheet is what I did, and that was my second level of preparation. I did a first full complete course on data structures algorithms. After that, I did the SDE cheat sheet, and in that 90% of the questions are repetitive. They ask, most of the companies ask the same questions again and again. So it depends on the company. So my experience, I've seen Amazon and Walmart look at dynamic programming. They have multiple rounds of coding rounds only. Few companies don't have multiple coding rounds. They have 1-2 coding rounds. And after that, they just have a managerial round or something like that, right? So what I'm trying to again say is that depending on the company, you have to focus your data structure algorithms. You don't have to do all the things. Most of the companies, except Walmart, Amazon, only those companies ask for dynamic programming. Google, Walmart, Amazon, 3 companies, most of them. Except that you can stick with arrays, queues, trees, linked lists,
The basic.
strings. I think these 5 is basic ones. So you don't have to go to graphs. They won't ask generally. Linked lists depends. Sometimes they are, sometimes they don't. So generally, array, strings, queues, trees. So these are the things which, and 2D arrays. So those are the only things they ask in the first.
So as you mentioned, DS and algo is not overrated. It is not a myth, and it is important.
It's not overrated.
Have your fundamentals right, and based on which company you're targeting. So based on that, you have to go through the particular DS and algo methods which are related to kind of companies. Right.
That's correct. Why that is? Because there's so many questions. There are like 1,500 questions which is there.
So that was basically how your preparation went. Achha, all right. Okay, so did you, you were also into real estate or something like that, no? Because I remember you doing a few reels or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Correct. So, that again was a funny thing. So, my dad is into real estate, right? So, what actually happened was I thought, let me help him out on the online side because I do a lot of online things. So, I actually developed my dad's website for him. Completely using that time I wanted to test my coding skills. That time I was doing my front end coding. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So I did not use anything like Bootstrap, Wix, and all those drag and drop websites I've not used. So everything was coded from scratch. It took me almost 2-3 weeks to do.
Very nice.
So it was me testing out my design skills. And that raw coding is, it takes a lot of time and effort. So
A platform to integrate your skills, because not a lot of people get that real, like first-hand experience. Because, a lot of people developed our application as well, the Innovac social application. And I had given opportunities to students.
Correct,
and the Yeah, of course. And the ultimate feedback that they gave me was whatever they learned in class, they were able to apply. So coming back to the point, it's basically what you are mentioning. Wow. It's all about applications. It's not about what you learn. It's about how you apply and
applicable. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I'm pretty sure people whoever develop your applications are going to go far, because when I saw the application. The design from the design, it has been designed very beautifully, because I look at the color patterns, small details which I can make out. Even though I've not actually hard tested your application, just by the screenshots and all that, I've seen the amount of detail. It's a good effort. I did not know students developed it.
Although we have a freelancer who did most of the coding part, but the entire design part was done by students, and we were also developing a web application. So that was entirely done by students. So we are going to launch that in a few months.
Oh, okay.
So coming back to you, tell us more about your internship. Where are you interning, and how did you get into this internship?
Okay, so I interned a few months back. Like 2-3 months back, I was doing the internship. I quit it because of my project, and because I was the most of like 80% of the coding was done by me. So I had to quit and focus on my final project. And after that, the company which I was interning at is called as Zen Equity. So it is an ESOP management platform. So ESOP is something called as employee stock options. So it is the stock options given to you. It is not yet stock. So after it undergoes a vesting of 1 year, it becomes stock. So so the handling, so generally HRs used to handle it in Excel sheets, and so for a big company it becomes tedious to look at the vesting cycle and all the other complications which go into handling options, stocks, and if it's something like Zomato or something which is a publicly listed company, it becomes hard to give out stocks. So that kind of management was what the company started. It's a startup which started 2-3 years back. They are pretty successful right now. It got acquired by Kata. So yeah, so I got a job offer there, but unfortunately I felt this was a bigger opportunity for me. So yeah, so that's what it was, and my role was started with JavaScript and developing templates. And initially, you know, right, internship, they don't give you major work.
Correct.
They give you some kind of chore work, right? Some chores they give. So even in coding, they gave me that kind of work. And if I'm not actually regretting it, because they gave me that kind of work, I had a lot of free time to focus on more coding, right? So people, whenever they take an internship, they should not look at just doing the company's work, because why I'm saying this is because generally you do learn a lot of skills in your internship, but if you do not upskill yourself every day, right, it becomes an issue, because end of the day you're getting paid as an intern. You're not getting, there's no job guarantee firstly, right? So if you put your heart, sweat, effort 24 hours a day, because there's so many people I know of my friends who tell me they've coded until 2 a.m., 3 a.m. and they don't end up getting a job, because now that recession period has started, right? And they don't get, they've kicked them out because the blockchain, you know, as it was a blockchain company, they fired all the people and they did not give them a job, right? So when the market is like that, when you put your heart, soul, effort, it's actually sad to see people like that, right? So, what my point is, work for the company, put your effort in, but upskill yourself also. So don't go for a company don't go for an unpaid internship. That is my first suggestion, because what you're doing there is you're putting your heart, soul, effort, and when you go for an unpaid internship, what happens is, even for the company, it's a loss. Why? Because nobody's going to put that effort in when you're not getting anything in return. So that's what companies don't see. When they hire an unpaid intern, he won't pick up his call. Like sometimes, so many times you might have seen, if you try to call them, they will not pick up. They might ignore. If you want some work, they might not do it. But when you give them money, it becomes their responsibility to perform, right? They have to perform. So
I can totally relate to this, because I was on the other hand. I was the person who was hiring people for no money. Okay, so I was providing unpaid internships because I myself did not have money. But at some point, I realized that people are not going to work with you without any incentives. So there has to be some kind of incentives for people to work with you.
Yeah, whether you promise them job stability or some kind of...
Alright then, so ultimately any quick tips and tricks for viewers who want to get placed at companies like Nutanix or Amazon, Walmart, anything like that?
Okay. Yeah, so good question again. So in an interview, there's actually 4 parts, okay? First, what they look at is projects, right? Then there's something called as aptitude, right? Aptitude, very few companies ask, which I've personally seen. I've seen only like 5-6 companies, or out of 150 companies that have come to BMS, I would say around 30 people have aptitudes mixed in. So you can actually do aptitude or quantitative aptitude learning. Again, there's a lot of courses on YouTube and Udemy, right, to do all that. Third part of it is this SQL, database management system, networking, Linux commands. So that's the third part of it. The fourth part of it is the competitive coding. So there are 4 things to cracking a company, right? So the first three, that is excluding the projects, will get you in through the first 2 steps of the company. Now, if you want to get into a top company, right, the only way to do that is to stand out of your peers. right? So how do you stand out of your peers is that you have to be one step ahead of the crowd. So what I personally did was for my Nutanix interview, I had actually taken my laptop inside. So yeah, so nobody else did that. They all went in. And what happens there is that you are giving the opportunity for the interviewer to ask you questions. But because I took my laptop in, so this is for the first round. So Nutanix actually had a 7-hour interview. So first was the coding round. So that was a 3-hour, like a 1.5 hour coding round where they asked arrays and trees and all this BMS SQL and all that. So that was a coding round. I cleared it. The next day, first round of interviewing was 3 hours. Okay. So for the 3-hour interviews, because I took my laptop in, I wanted to make them ask me questions on topics I knew about rather than topics I did not know about. So how did I? Yeah. So I created the bench for me where this is how you work smart and not work hard. So what I did, I started showing my projects one by one and made them ask me questions on my projects. Okay. So now what happens is, no matter what question, so now I'm creating a set of mindset in my interviewer saying that I know the answers to whatever she's asking. Right? She might not be asking me because end of the day, she might ask me questions which I do not know. So I'm bringing the topic of questions to my domain, right? Yeah, so I started by showing my projects. She started asking me questions on that, and every kind of question she's asked me, like things like how does a 4-year-old explain cloud computing to a 4-year-old. It started from there to details about my project. She asked me to draw diagrams about my project, and it's not like they don't ask you other technical questions. Here and there, they ask me what is TCP/IP protocols, what is the OSI stack, and a lot of other things. So I explained to her my projects and all these small questions you have to know the answers to, right? So this made me stand out of the crowd, right? This made me stand out of the crowd, and my projects were a little bit advanced because I've been doing it for 4 years. And because it was advanced, luckily the interviewer herself told me, I'm generally an interviewer doesn't tell you that. She's like, I'm pretty amazed by what you have done. When I was in engineering, I did not do so many projects. In my master's, I did. So it's good to see a student like you. So that was itself gave me a sense of confidence, knowing that I'm going to go to the second round, right? So that happened, and my projects was on microservices, which she was really impressed on, right? Yeah, so microservices was the thing. So if you want me to explain what microservices is, it is basically if you have a website, the search bar, so each of those components, search bar or like for example, let's take Myntra. So each of them has a separate database, okay? And so why separate database is, suppose recently, few years back, Flipkart, right? You remember on Big Billion Day sales, the site used to crash. So this stopped happening after microservices architecture has come into play. So what microservices does is it compartmentalizes each part of the application. So now even if the server load is high, only parts of the application will fail, not the entire website. So suppose now sometimes if you look at Myntra, maybe the men's section will not be working. Women's section will be working. So, and you can allocate resources to things that are more important. Maybe the payments part is very important. So you allocate a lot of servers to that. So basically that is what microservices is. So because our viewers should have a good idea, right? And yeah, so I stood out there and I was able to explain the architectural diagrams of what microservices is, how it matters. And this is what I told her. I told her, ma'am, the way I code is completely different because I do not start coding immediately. People, as soon as what they do is they start typing out random things and then they delete the whole thing. So the first part of it is planning how to code. So I told her, ma'am, it takes me time to code. I do a lot of research. I code in a clean way, meaning I organize my code. There's something called as MVC architecture, model view controller architecture. So what that MVC is, it's basically organizing your code in 3 parts so that it any other coder, if after me I quit the job, the person who looks at my code has to understand it. So that is what is important, and I told her all this. So this is where again I stood out, right? And then the interest for the company. You have to do the research about the company. What people don't do is they get into a job. You have to read about the CEO. You have to read about what their goal is, long-term goal, short-term goal. Understand what architecture they are doing. How can you add value to it if you can add value to it. For example, if I would actually recommend somebody else should join Nutanix, right? I would actually tell them to do some courses on, because if you know, there's some certifications on Nutanix also. So basically, the main idea is whatever you do, you have to stand out from your peers. And one more fun fact, which I can actually tell you, is from BMS. Last 2 years, I am the first guy to get placed in Nutanix after 2 years. Yeah, so 2 years there's been 0 placement from Nutanix, and I got placed into it, and thank God, thank grace. But thank myself also. I put in the hard work, but so, and that was the first round of interviewing, right? And the second round was this again. So now what the technical part was. So this is where I had to know my core knowledge. So he did not let me go. The second round I think was 3 hours. Now, since I already explained about my projects, he did not let me explain more about the projects. He's like, we are very much impressed on the projects. He made me ask technical questions properly. So this was a round where he asked everything. Again, the competitive coding, SQL, databases, all that. So it was 3 hours of hard questioning and diagrams, and something which people don't realize, again, which whoever's going for interviews, and I've already cracked the first round. And when you have a face-to-face interaction, right, you don't actually have to know everything. So there's 2 points here. Okay? So first point is, if you don't know something, say you don't know. It's very simple. Be honest. Say, because everybody can't know everything. Just say, sir, I do not know the answer to this question. It wouldn't be fair if you judged me on this. And if you have weak points, suppose OS is my weak point. Why? Because it was online classes, right? So operating systems was my weak point. So I told him, sir, please do not ask questions on OS. But he still did ask, because you cannot not ask. But I did answer. Luckily, those questions I knew the answer to. But again, the point is, they do take into consideration, because it's not a system interview. So, and one more issue which happens, if you suppose don't know something and you try to bullshit on it.
Correct.
The interviewer, what they do is they generally go ahead with the bullshit. Like, they keep questioning more and more about the bullshit, and you land into a well. So that's a big issue, right? So that's the first point, where you don't tell what you know, and if you don't know something, don't tell it. The second point with this is that draw the diagrams, explain it properly. And this is second point was actually with regards to competitive coding, where you do not actually have to code the entire thing. Like, suppose sometimes what happens is the interviewer does not ask, he'll ask you a competitive coding question, like maybe arrays or something, right? You do not have to solve the question in front of him. Even though he tells you to, don't start solving it. The interviewer is not looking whether you can solve the question or not. He's looking how your thought process is. So when he asks you the thought process, your main funda should be that how you should talk to him a lot. Keep talking. So run him through your thought process. Say that, sir, I'm thinking about this, right? So run him through your thought process. And the second part about this is that you should, while running him through your thought process, you should tell him different strategies which you would use to approach the problem. So if you tell him one strategy, he'll be like, okay, fine, he does not know. So I was able to tell him 2-3 strategies where I could approach the problem, different techniques I could use. So all these things will tell him that you know your funda properly. Yeah, so I did not actually end up sitting and coding the entire problem. I drew diagrams. So what happens when you do this is that if you start coding, you might be wrong. There's a chance you might be wrong, because if he tells you to type it on the laptop, right, it might not compile on time. And sometimes there's something called as test cases. If you have ever done competitive coding, test cases. So it'll pass, if there's 200 test cases, it'll pass 100, 120. The rest 80 it'll fail. So why take that risk, right? So don't start coding immediately. Second point is, again, so explain your logic to him. That's all they want in the interview. And the third part about this is HR round. So the third round is the HR round, the human resource round. Over there, you should talk about your interest towards the company. Where this is why you have to do your research about the company. You have to tell them how your long-term goals match the company's goals. So what you don't do is tell them you have an entrepreneurial spirit. Because end of the day, if you tell you have an entrepreneurial spirit, what their thought process is, he's going to copy our software and go start his own company. That should not be your correct, right? So that's the first thing. Don't tell him that. Don't tell him you're going to go abroad studies in 2-3 years. That is your goals. Keep it to yourself. That is your future. If they ask you a 5 to 10 year long term plan, they are asking with regards to their company, not your 5 to 10 years long term goal. So you should align yourself with the company and tell them that research about the company and tell them how you are passionate towards the company. So my answer was pretty simple. I think if they ask me why Nutanix, so this is another trick which I used was I questioned myself before letting them question you. Like right now, you did not ask me about the internship process. I felt it was important for people to know how my internship went. So these small things where you add in value without people asking you itself will keep you a step ahead. So I asked myself in the HR round, ma'am, if you do ask me why Nutanix, so I do not let them give them an opportunity to question me, because end of the day they have a limited time to question you, right? If they can question you for 2-3 hours, that's all they can do. So in that 2-3 hours, you should connect to them, talk about this is where your skills. You don't have to be a hard worker. You have to be a smart, right? So I told him, ma'am, if you ask me why Nutanix, I would say that for my childhood, and this is a true fact, right? From my childhood, I've always wanted to join Google. Why Google? Because I felt that software and technologies actually impact the society at large on an everyday basis. And how? Because of the environment, social impact, and whatever. Their technologies are so amazing that speech to text translation, Google Maps. We can't even see our technology being where it is right now without Google. Anything you take up, smartphone, Amazon, everything is dependent on Google. So there's even a saying which they say that if you try to beat Google, you're going to lose. If you use Google as a ladder to grow, you will reach heights. So what I told them is, ma'am, if you ask me why Nutanix, I wanted to join Google from my 7th grade because it affects the society at large on an everyday basis, the kind of technologies they do. And Google, what I realized right now is that Google is not the only company which affects technologies, right? And similarly, I did realize that Nutanix does affect the society at large on a daily basis. And that is why I chose Nutanix. So they were impressed on that. So small things. So basically, whatever I told for 2-3 hours is stay ahead of the peers. That is the end of the story. So maybe now by what I'm telling you right now, the peers might get more advanced. They might do everything I tell them to do, right? But you have to find a way to learn new technologies, new techniques, because end of the day, if I try to beat a person who's been coding Java for 40 years, I cannot beat him. There's no way. He has 40 years of life experience. What you can beat him is on new coding languages, like Flutter is there. Go is a language by Google. So those languages you can beat.
It was very brief. I think our viewers got more than what I was asking for. And so, I mean, to summarize everything, be good with your fundamentals, know what you're doing, and do what you're interested in. Find companies that you like. It shouldn't be the other way. And also, whatever you said with respect to the entire placement journey, DS algo is important, and it's how you present yourself. I can 100,000% agree with you, because presentation skills matter. They do matter a lot. Exactly.
Yeah, it does matter a lot. That day I was so well dressed, you know. I had a full white shirt. I had 2 pens in my pocket. So all those small things, it keeps you ahead, and you should be respectable, humble. You should talk to them with grace.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people have that attitude towards that they know better.
Exactly.
That's not, you cannot have attitude and
plan your journey. Planning is also important,
So-
and you have to plan smart. So be smart. So that's basically
Very
probably
important.
that's basically your entire podcast. I mean, I haven't heard anybody talking so much about placement in detail the way you told. The way you told how you have planned, and the way you told our viewers how they have to plan. I mean, that was really amazing. And you know, I did not. I mean, I knew because see, I recruit people, so there were. But my recruitment style is a bit different. You know, I mean, since we are still a startup. The way we do recruitment is completely different, and I now have an insight on how these big companies recruit. So thank you so much for that. And one heads up for our viewers, we have updated
Cool, sir.
our application Innovac Social with instant notifications, chats, and third-party link integrations. I'll put the link to the Google Play Store in the description. So update it and let us know what you feel about the application, the updated application. So yes, Karan, thank you so much for joining me in this podcast. Is there anything else left for you to say to our viewers?
Cool, sir. Yeah, so as an ending note, not to the viewers, but to you, because so far I was addressing the viewers. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And for the viewers who don't know, I and Sarang have been good friends for my first year. We've known each other quite well. And yes, we have known each other on official terms, not unofficial. So maybe after this we can get ahead on unofficial terms. And thank you, Sarang. Get all the best on InvoCat, and I'm pretty sure because Innovac. Okay, so I've never asked you to pronounce it before. Innovac. Got it. So thank you for that. And it's always good to be corrected. Thank you. And last thing was that guys, do go check out his application. And entrepreneurial is something that I'm pretty sure that no matter what you do, you'll be successful, sir. Because I've seen that in you, and you have that. Because for an entrepreneur, more than anything else, his ideas or his company don't matter, right? Whether it succeeds or fails, the entrepreneur in life will succeed. So it might not be right now, it might not be tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure you'll succeed.
Thank you so much, Karan. And viewers will get back to you next week with